The transport vessel shuddered as it descended through the atmosphere of Station Pinnacle, humanity's newest diplomatic outpost in the Outer Rim territories. Inside the cargo hold, Lyra pressed her scaled palms against the reinforced glass of her containment unit. Her species, the Velthir, had lost the war 3 cycles ago. Now she was property, a gift from the Galactic Council to cement their new alliance with Earth. Captain James Mitchell stood in the receiving bay, datapad in hand, watching the automated systems unload crates of supplies. He wore the standard gray uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, his expression neutral as workers directed cargo to various sections of the station. His commanding officer had mentioned something about a special delivery, though James had been too focused on the recent trade negotiations to pay much attention. Captain Mitchell? A dock worker approached, checking his manifest. We have a live delivery for you. Special Council designation. James frowned. Live delivery? I didn't order any livestock. The worker shifted uncomfortably. It's not livestock, sir. It's a Velthir, gift designated. Your name is on the transfer documents. The captain's jaw tightened. He had heard about this practice, how certain council members still engaged in the ancient custom of offering sentient beings as tribute. The Velthir homeworld had been conquered, and survivors were distributed as rewards to various allied powers. Earth had officially protested the practice, but the Council had insisted it was a sign of respect. Show me, James said quietly. They walked to the secure section of the bay where Lyra's unit waited. She stood perfectly still inside, her reptilian features composed despite the obvious fear in her amber eyes. Her scales shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting between deep violet and midnight blue. She wore the simple gray shift that marked her status as property. James stared at the containment unit, then at the datapad thrust into his hands. The documentation was thorough. She had been evaluated, processed, and assigned to him personally. Her skills were listed: linguistic expert, cultural analyst, trained in 12 forms of combat, proficient in advanced mathematics. At the bottom of the file, a single line stood out in red text: non-negotiable gift. Refusal constitutes diplomatic incident. Release her from the unit, James ordered. The dock worker hesitated. Sir, protocol requires. I said release her. The locks disengaged with a hiss. The transparent walls of the containment unit folded away, leaving Lyra standing on the deck plating. She did not move, trained to await instruction. Her tail curved around her legs, a defensive posture her species adopted when uncertain. James approached slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. What's your name? She blinked, clearly not expecting the question. I am designated Lyra, human. Captain James Mitchell, he replied, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Lyra stared at his hand, confusion evident. She had been taught about human customs, but everything in her conditioning said she should kneel, should lower herself before her new owner. Instead, this human stood before her as if she were an equal. I don't bite, James said with a slight smile. It's a handshake, a greeting between equals. Slowly, Lyra reached out and placed her scaled hand in his. James shook it gently, then released it. Come with me, he said. We need to talk. He led her through the station corridors, ignoring the stares from other personnel. Most humans on the station had never seen a Velthir up close. The few who had knew them only as defeated enemies or serving staff in council facilities. To see one walking freely beside a captain raised eyebrows and whispers. James brought her to his quarters, a modest suite with a living area and separate bedroom. He gestured to the couch. Please sit. Lyra remained standing, trained responses overriding confusion. I am a gift, human. I do not require furniture. I can stand or kneel as you prefer. I prefer you sit, James said firmly. Please. She sat, perching on the edge of the cushion, her posture rigid. James took a chair across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Let me be clear about something," he began. "I didn't ask for you. I didn't want a gift, especially not a sentient being. What the Council is doing is wrong, and Earth has been fighting against this practice in every diplomatic session." Lyra listened, her expression unreadable. Years of conditioning made her wary of hope. "However," James continued, "refusing you would cause problems not just for me, but potentially for Earth's position in this sector. The Council would see it as an insult, and they'd probably just assign you to someone else, someone who might not care about your well-being." "I understand, human," Lyra said quietly. "I am yours to command. I will serve in whatever capacity you require." James shook his head. "That's not what I'm saying. I'm not going to treat you as property, because I don't believe any sentient being should be owned. But we're in a difficult situation, and I need to figure out how to navigate it without making things worse for either of us." For the first time since her capture, something flickered in Lyra's eyes. Not quite hope, but perhaps the first crack in the wall of resignation she had built around herself. "You are not going to use me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," James said firmly, "and I'm going to do everything I can to help you." The following weeks established a strange routine. James gave Lyra the bedroom while he took the couch, despite her protests. He set up a workstation for her and provided access to the station's educational resources. When asked about his unusual gift in diplomatic circles, James introduced her as his cultural advisor, a role that wasn't entirely false given her expertise. Lyra struggled to understand. She had been trained to expect cruelty or exploitation. Instead, James treated her with respect. He asked her opinion on matters. He shared meals with her as an equal. He never touched her beyond that initial handshake, maintaining a careful distance that spoke of respect rather than disgust. One evening, after a particularly long day of trade negotiations, James returned to find Lyra working at her terminal. She had been analyzing communication patterns between human and council representatives, identifying subtle linguistic cues that might give Earth's delegation an advantage. "You should rest," James said, setting down his briefcase. "You've been at this for hours." Lyra turned to face him, her scales catching the soft light of the quarters. "Captain Mitchell, I must ask you something." "James," he corrected gently. "Just James when we're alone." "James," she repeated, testing the name. "I was given to you as a present. According to every law and custom in this sector, I belong to you. Yet in all these weeks, you have not once asserted that ownership. You provide for me. You protect me. You treat me with dignity. But you maintain distance as if I carry some disease." She stood, moving closer. "I do not understand, human. Why have you not touched me? Am I repulsive to you? Is there something about my species that offends?" James sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lyra, you're not repulsive. And this has nothing to do with your species. It's about consent and freedom." "But I consent," she said, confusion evident in her voice. "I am yours." "No," James said firmly. "You're not mine. You're your own person. And yes, you say you consent. But how can I trust that consent when you've been conditioned to believe you have no other choice? When you've been taught that your value is in serving whoever owns you?" Lyra stood silent for a long moment, processing his words. Something inside her, something she thought had been beaten out of her during processing, began to stir. "You truly believe that?" she asked. "That I have value beyond service?" "I know you do," James replied. "You're brilliant, Lyra. Your analysis of the Council's communication strategies has given us insights that would have taken our team months to uncover. You're not a possession. You're a person who deserves to make your own choices about your life. A single tear traced down Lyra's scaled cheek, the first she had allowed herself to shed since her world fell. My people are scattered across a dozen systems, owned by those who destroyed us. I thought I understood my fate, but you have shown me something I believed was lost. What's that? James asked softly. Hope, she whispered. You have shown me that even in defeat, even in the darkest circumstances, there are those who see us as more than spoils of war. James moved to his desk, pulling out a secure datapad. I've been working on something. Earth's government is establishing a program to sponsor displaced Valthyr, offering citizenship and asylum. It's not much, and it'll take time, but I've already submitted your application. If approved, you'll have legal standing as a citizen, not property. Lyra's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, overwhelmed. James knelt beside her, careful not to touch, but present in his support. I don't know when or if it'll be approved, he admitted. The bureaucracy is complicated, and there's political opposition. But I promise you, Lyra, I will fight for your freedom until it's secured. She looked up at him, amber eyes blazing with something new, something powerful. Why? Why would you do this for someone like me? James smiled sadly. Because it's the right thing to do. And because humanity learned a long time ago what happens when we forget that every sentient being deserves dignity and freedom. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better. I was given to you as a present, Lyra said, her voice stronger now. But you have given me something far more valuable in return. What's TR?